Today I'm out working in the blackberry patch doing some harvesting, and I thought it would be a good time to talk about a little test that I did last year, and that was planting a Kiowa blackberry in the middle of my blackberry run here. The two other bushes that I've had for years out here are triple crown, and there's a lot of differences between these two plants and what they do and don't do. So we're going to go over the Kiowa today and just give you the pros and cons of it that I've found so far. There are a lot of different blackberry varieties out there, so I'm just going to compare the Kiowa to what I grow, and that's the triple crown. The triple crown is a thornless plant, which is very nice, but it's a vining type blackberry, and that means that you'll grow usually a larger central stalk, maybe 2 or 3 of those, and then it will shoot off these long vines from that main leader. And what I have to do every year is coil those or put them up on this trellis that I built years ago. And so there's a little bit of additional work there when doing something like that with this type of blackberry variety. The Kiowa, on the other hand, is an upright grower, and you can see down here these very thick, heavy stalks that grow straight up. And from those you'll get the branching and the fruit producing laterals that grow off of that. The nice thing about this on the pro column of the Kiowa is you don't have to have a trellis. I planted this here because this is where my blackberries are, but honestly this upright growth with heavy stalks like that you could put just about anywhere, maybe even for security fencing along a property line with the thorns on it might work also. The other benefit that I noticed about the Kiowa in my area, which is zone 9, is it seems to be very heat tolerant. Now we get a lot of high extreme temperatures in my area in the summer, and although this summer has been a little cooler, the high temps here do not seem to affect this Kiowa blackberry at all. It's very vigorous growing. It seems to like the heat in my area, and I've had no problems with it whatsoever. The main reason that everybody wants to plant a Kiowa and why I wanted to experiment with it myself is the huge berries that this bush grows. Now this is a earlier producing blackberry than the triple crowns. You can see that they're just now starting to push out berries that are turning red, where the Kiowa I've already harvested most of the blackberries off, which is another good thing about the pro value of this bush as well for me. Because of the high temps that we get in our area, having a blackberry that produces its fruit a little earlier in the season helps prevent me from having to guard the young berries as they're producing from the intense sunlight. A lot of times in my area I'll have to cover these berries as they're starting to form, otherwise the sun will just cook them. Just to give you a quick comparison of the size of the Kiowas compared to, in my case, the triple crowns, here's a pretty typical Kiowa blackberry. Actually it might be a little on the smaller side for how big these things get. See the difference between the size of that in a typical triple crown or a lot of the other varieties that are out there. These will get a little bit bigger, the red ones, as they turn black and swell up a little bit, but you can see the size difference. As far as berry flavor goes, the Kiowa has a very distinct acidic punch to it. It's definitely can be sweet if you let it vine ripen, so it's a very good tasting berry, but just be aware that there is definitely an acidic power that comes through on these berries compared to the sweetness of my triple crowns. One of the things I was concerned about with the size of the berry on the Kiowa was that it would be a huge mouthful of seeds, and actually the opposite is true. For the size of blackberries that it puts out, I've noticed that I have fewer seeds in these than I do the triple crown. So if you were making jam or pies, different things like that, this might be a good candidate for you to consider growing. I planted this Kiowa blackberry from a small branch about this size that was in a pot, and you can see here in the second year the vigorous growth and the size of the canes that we're getting off of this. So there's another pro for this plant in my opinion. This is the second season of it, and it grew very vigorously and put out quite a few berries. I think the main question most people would have is, how is the fruit production of the Kiowa compared to other varieties? And I don't have a lot of experience with all the different blackberry varieties. As I said, I have triple crown in my berry run, but I would say this: I would consider this to be a medium producing blackberry compared to the triple crown. However, It needs to be said that this is this bush's second year, so in all fairness, it might be a heavier producing plant next year. All right, now I'm going to give you a short list of things that I think are negative attributes to this bush that I've experienced. And the first and foremost would be, of course, the thorns. You can look at the Kiowa stalks and branches and you can see what a thorny son of a gun it is. And believe me, you will definitely figure it out real quickly when you start harvesting berries off of this thing. Maybe I'm spoiled because of the other varieties I have are thornless, and I certainly knew this bush was thorned going in, but it just needs to be added to the con side of the list. I think that this is a thorned bush. If you have small children and people that want to come out here and pick berries, that's definitely a factor. I haven't had any major issues with the Kiowa with insects or disease, but having said that, I did have more problems with it as far as insects go than I've ever experienced with the triple crowns. And I don't know exactly why that is. They're very similar as far as plant goes, leaves and places to hide and all that kind of stuff. But for some reason, there were a lot of insects that liked the Kiowa better than the triple crowns this year. I saw worms eating leaves on this thing that I've never experienced before. I've sprayed several times for what I believe are called assassin bugs, just comparing them to what I see online. But again, I haven't had anything that was detrimental to the growth of the plant or caused any problems with producing fruit. We already talked real briefly about the difference between the tartness of the Kiowa compared to the sweetness of the triple crown. So there is a different flavor profile you need to be aware of. Did I mention that the Kiowa has thorns? Overall, I think the Kiowa is an outstanding variety for you to grow in your backyard. I gave you a list of some of the pros and cons of it today so you can be aware of what works best for you. The Triple Crown will always be a winner as far as blackberries in my mind, but I think this variety right here is certainly worth adding in your berry patch. So what did I find after our test with the Kiowa blackberry in our berry patch? Well, for me, I think it's a very good addition to our berry patch that we grow. We'll always favor the Triple Crowns just for the amount of volume that they produce and the sweetness of the berries and the ease of picking, but we're definitely going to keep this Kiowa in our backyard and enjoy it for years to come. Hey, I'm out here in my berry patch. Here, any, ow, son of a bitch. I can't.